Hey guys, it's Mandy. So throughout my life, I used to have problems with dealing with negative thoughts coming into my head all the time. It actually got so bad at one point that it was starting to just like literally drive me crazy. So over the years, I read tons and tons of books, and a lot of them say similar things of how to deal with when you're feeling bombarded with these negative thoughts just constantly like coming into your mind. You know the thoughts. You know that little negative nagging voice. It's like having someone sitting on your shoulder just constantly belittling you, telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not big enough, you're not thin enough, you're not strong enough, you're just not good enough. And sometimes you can get really overloaded with these thoughts, and it can kind of change your perspective on the world around you, along with just really killing your self-esteem. Unfortunately, some people like myself, after years and years of just constantly hearing this voice bombard me with negativity, after a while, I really started to sort of buy into that story. Unfortunately, that had a huge impact on my life and like how I interacted with other people and how I saw the world around me. And I want to tell you that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Now, I'm not some spiritual guru that is going to sit here up on my high horse and just tell you how to fix all your life problems. But what I can do is I can tell you from my experience some of the things that I have tried and put into practice that have really worked for me and kind of helped me turn everything around. A lot of these things are pretty easy, simple things that you can put into practice every day. The biggest thing though is that some of these things can take a really long time to start noticing the results. So the first thing that I put into practice was I started meditating every day. Now, meditation is actually a lot easier than many people will think. You can just sit there, even for just a minute, try to sit there in the quiet and just, anytime a thought comes into your mind, just observe that thought. Don't be a part of that thought. Kind of separate yourself from the thought. Like you're just observing the thoughts. They don't really have any meaning unless you attach meaning to them. And when you do meditate, it doesn't matter what position you're in. You could be sitting up, you can be laying down. Just make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, and just try to observe what's going on in your mind and kind of separate yourself from it. Don't attach any meaning to it. This is where you're kind of training yourself to just observe the thoughts and sort of take away that power that thoughts can have. So this really helped me a lot, because when I would meditate and I would have thoughts kind of float in and out of my mind, I didn't have as much attachment to them. So with this kind of meditation, you're not really trying to clear your mind or anything. You're just trying to observe what's going on in the mind. And this one really helped me so much because it helped kind of separate me from my thoughts. So when I would get a negative thought coming in my mind, I didn't have to attach myself to it. I didn't have to see those negative thoughts as like a personal attack on myself. I didn't have to believe them anymore. So that was kind of a really interesting thing that happened with that, because I am just the observer. I just notice the thoughts, but I'm not part of the thoughts. It really is just sort of this weird separation type of an exercise. So one of my other favorite practices with this type of meditation of just sitting there observing your thoughts was when a negative thought would come into my mind, I had the choice to accept that negative thought or reject that negative thought. Now, this is much more powerful when you are in more of a relaxed meditative state. So when I would be observing those negative thoughts coming into my mind, I had the ability to accept or reject that thought. Now, of course, if it was a negative thought, you're not good enough, no one likes you, no one really cares about you, I had the option to just reject that thought. So I just started doing this practice every day. I would sit down for at least 5 minutes every day and try to put myself in a meditative state and observe the thoughts. And when a negative thought would enter my mind, I would say to myself, I reject that thought. And over months of doing these simple practices of observing my thoughts and either accepting thoughts that came into my mind or rejecting thoughts that came into my mind, I started to gain more control. I started to gain control of more of what was going on in my head, which was a huge, huge life-changing thing for me, because there were times where it just sounded like noise in my head, where there were so many negative thoughts coming into my mind all at once that it would just leave me on the ground in tears because I just couldn't take all that noise going on in my head, and there was just no way for me to really ignore all those thoughts coming in all at once. So just practicing these little 5-minute a day exercises over several months, I started to notice more and more my head was clear. I didn't really have hardly any negative thoughts coming into my mind. My mind was clearer, my focus was better, and I was able to start really feeling like I could kind of live my life again. I don't know how many books I've read and seminars that I've watched, and some of these actual like spiritual gurus and psychiatrists and all these people talk about basically the same things. We become what we think about, and there really is no getting around that, because when you are constantly focused on certain things, if you're focusing on you're not good enough, then eventually you really are gonna be not good enough, because you're fixating on it and you start creating these self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe that nobody likes you and nobody cares about you, then you're gonna stop putting yourself out there. You're gonna stop putting yourself out there. You're gonna stop trying to make new friends. You're gonna stop, sometimes you might even stop contacting your old friends and your loved ones. You might stop communicating with them because in your mind, no one cares about you, so why should you put forth that kind of effort? And then it is a self-fulfilling prophecy where eventually no one does care about you. Or maybe they do, but you just don't know that they do because you don't talk to each other anymore. These exercises really helped me a lot. I think learning to observe my thoughts and accept or reject the thoughts that came into my mind, I think that was probably the biggest life-changing thing that I put into practice. Now, I do practice this every single day. I try to make sure that I spend at least 5 minutes a day, because pretty much no matter how busy your life is, you can find 5 minutes a day to put this into practice. It can be 5 minutes when you first wake up and you're still in bed and you just lay there for another 5 minutes and you just kind of observe the thoughts that pop into your mind. And if it's a positive thought, you can accept it, and if it's a negative thought, you can say, I reject that thought. I don't want that negative thought. And eventually you just start finding that you get less and less negative thoughts, and you start putting yourself out there more and living your life better. And it is something that just a few minutes a day can make a world of difference in how you feel about yourself, how you feel about others, how you feel about the world around you. And as I said, when I first started putting this into practice, I mean, it took a while. This is not something that's going to be overnight. You're going to do it one time and you're going to feel amazing the next day. But it is something that every day you're going to feel a little bit better, until one day you wake up and you're like, I don't really get those negative thoughts anymore. There's really something to this. So I don't know if this is going to be something that will help everyone, but this is something that really, really helped kind of change my life and helped me a lot with dealing with depression and all the negative thoughts that kept filling my mind and helped me kind of get over this hump of, for a long time, I was very suicidal and I was deep into depression. And this simple exercise really kind of was a game changer for me. And so I really felt that I needed to share it with all of you, and maybe it will make a huge difference in your life too. So I really hope that some of you out there will try this exercise out. Like I said, it only takes like 5 minutes a day and it can potentially mean a world of difference. And I want everybody out there to have a better life and have a happier existence and not have all those negative thoughts just filling their minds with garbage that you don't have to listen to. So that's all I really have for you guys today. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!